So, yeah. I think I'm pretty much packing like I did to Alaska. Like
Kelly keeps saying, I don't think we need to. I said, here's the thing. You never know.
It's going to be between 40 and 50. Like that's what
I'm pretty sure it's going to be warmer than that. I think the range is like 50 to 65.
Really?
And that's different, right? Like 50 to 65. 50's in, midnight to 4 in the morning, 2 in the morning, right? You're not going to be out during them. 65, you're fine.
Right.
Oh, so I guess she doesn't want a cat, said Jay. She said, Jay.
I'm not really that terrified of cats, really.
I've heard of that of dogs before, not cats.
I mean, she must have been attacked, I bet.
Really? Because everything I've seen, it says that the weather is going to be cooler.
Have you looked up historic weather in June in Iceland to see in the past?
Ready?
We're ready.
As we embark on 1 week of school left,
Yes.
right?
Week and a half.
I'm sure all of you are excited about that, right? Almost time.
Yep.
Well, starting off, I guess, always good, I think, make sure our agenda looks good. If there's anything that's been missed, anything added on, any changes you'd like to make to it at this point, we can obviously do things as we go too, but always good to have an agenda out. I know we owed you a number of articles back. I think I had a list of a number as well from you all, but we've only got one up there. So if there's any more that you owe.
Should just be an MOU, but I think our
Yeah.
MOU is dependent on an article.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we're just waiting to see what you guys pass.
Okay. So again, we've got, I believe, responses to all of them. Anything opening comment wise? What's that?
They can't hear you.
Oh, y'all can't hear? Okay. I'm sorry. Thank you. That's why. This is that too. Thank you. Low battery. I'll just talk with my room voice.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay, I won't repeat everything, but I'll condense it. I said we are all excited for the end of the school year. It came and went, I think, a little bit too quick. And then also just mentioning on our agenda, if there's any changes. Other than that, I think we're ready to jump in and start providing some language back. So we're going to go, I guess, in order. So let me do 6. How many do we have? Should be enough for you all.
Sorry, Kate.
And for color coding purposes, I know it's getting a little bit challenging. Maybe next go around, we try to figure out a better way not to confuse each other with color coding. The stricken through red, I believe, were your proposed changes. That if it's a strike through red, that means that we rejected that proposed change.
Okay.
If it's a strike through black, it's a strike through just to the original contract language. Green is our additions. And then black, bold black is where we put the contract language back in. I'll give you a few minutes. This one's a little bit, I know it's a lengthier article, so it's a little bit more difficult to follow. And then this one goes along with. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Probably do that one next. And just so if those don't have the paper in front, although I know it's up on the screen, it's just responses to Article 6 on professional employee working conditions. I know those online may not be able to hear that. And does it make the most sense to go through, just pass each one of these out, give you a chance to look at them, or do you want to comment and stop as we go?
I think we need to go through the changes so people can hear.
This one.
Same way.
Yeah. Again, I'll let you look at them if you have a particular question. I think we don't really have, other than it kind of speaks for itself. I think we understood as it related to the classroom visits piece, the need to hopefully have a little bit more heads up when there would be a classroom visit. Obviously can't guarantee in all scenarios. This is letter F. It's on page 1. It's a understandable expectation or ask that there be some notice in advance. 2 days was probably a little bit too unworkable, and went with 1 day instead of that.
So can you go back to A? Why would we not want to put what a school psychologist's workday looks like?
So I think part of the discussion was there's a couple of different groups that are coming in different directions, asking to look at contract, looking at time, looking at different pieces. We'll see it in the planning piece as well. You know, and our, until we have some other data, like we feel it should stay consistent for now, unless there's a reason that we should look to change the work day or the work week or the work year.
But they are currently working 8 hours.
Right.
So why would we, like, that's what's currently happening. So why would we just not put it in there to be clear for everyone?
Well, where is it not clear though, I guess was the.
I mean, as a new employee, aside from when they're hired and somebody tells you that your workday is 8 hours, how else do they know and have something to go off of? Then if that's what the contract's
It's
for.
been a problem?
No, but I don't buy. It just doesn't, I mean,
Well,
that
they-
is their current
Right.
hours. They work those hours.
It's written in another article. We just
Yeah.
wanted to put it here so that it was with the teacher one. It's not new language. It's in another article. Is it 15?
And
Hold on, I got 15 here.
Yeah, and
You just want to leave it in 15.
Is
Yeah.
it?
It might not be 15. I can look at it real quick. No, it wouldn't be in 15.
I didn't think it was in 15. But
I'll look it up.
It's 15.
So I got 15.
School,
It just says how many
the
calendar
length of the
days.
workday shall be 8
Oh,
hours
yeah.
per day and include working conditions in Article 6. Any additional days worked as psychologists beyond 220 will be at the employee's daily rate of pay. It's A, 15A.
Do we need it in 2 spots?
Right.
That's, I think,
And I guess it was just, is it a problem? I don't know. A lot of the theme of it was, I didn't know because we didn't have a chance to talk about it. So if it is, tell us.
It's not a problem. It's just consistency as well.
We can take it from the consistency.
Okay, so you only want to give people 24 hours notice and not 48 hours notice.
yes.
Can we clarify, because I have been getting questions of who is considered a board employee is anyone within the schools, correct?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
yes.
So
So it's not a school board member, it just means anyone that works within St. Johns County is a board employee. Okay, I just want to clarify because I've been getting that, like when we sent out
What's
our
the con-
bargaining brief, people
Yeah,
were asking that question and I wanted to make sure that was clarified. So. that's all.
So
Is it
like-
just clarifying that you mean like when an employee of the district, we use district, but board employees
Right.
interchangeably, you're just
Right.
saying if it's an employee, it's a board employee,
Right.
regardless.
Some people were interpreting that as like a board member, not just
A school board.
a school board employee, as in like they work for the St. Johns County School.
I mean, I think doesn't statute already dictate visits by school board members to classrooms?
Right.
Maybe.
Probably. I just wanted that clarified
Okay.
for whoever was asking that question at the table. So that was all that was.
I'm sure it does cover it.
There you go.
I'm sure it does cover.
Okay, so if we move down to J, why do you want to get rid of 48 hours versus just having a blanket notice. Like that's vague. And so that just means that like in an hour, I could say that you have a parent teacher conference.
I think what we had talked about was the practical reality that a lot of parent conferences get scheduled quickly. And so by putting the 48 hours notice in there, it was potentially limiting the ability to have quick turnaround times on parent conferences. I think that's when, if I understood, that was kind of our approach in what
Yeah.
one of our concerns was with it. Has it, I guess in practice, have you, with the current language or with the language that is currently in there, is that 48-hour language, right? Or is that what your proposal
That's what we were
was?
proposing.
Yeah, that it kicks it out too far, I think, from our perspective, in order to have timely parent conferences. If you have for instance, a parent conference on a very time-sensitive issue, to have to say, pause, wait 2 days, I think that's an impractical approach for being able to address issues timely.
Okay.
That was the justification for it. Yeah.
So, and
Sorry, just, go ahead.
so, and again, more than just from like a clarification, similar to the first point, like has it been an issue? Are we saying that we're dragging people into parent meetings without requisite number of time? Obviously, you'd want somebody to be prepared for the meeting, right? So
Right.
I would imagine a rare instance that I'd arrive up to the school and then have a parent meeting in an hour. Because
That could be rare, but but that's what we're trying to protect from happening. Right? Like I shouldn't arrive on campus and then have my principal say, hey, this parent showed up to school and you now have to have a meeting with them right when I arrive to campus.
So has that happened?
It hasn't, but it could. We're trying to protect it from happening.
It actually has.
For the rest of the sentence, also give you.
Yeah.
It hasn't happened to me personally, no,
No.
but I'm sure it has happened to other employees.
But does that already give you protection the remainder of what it says there? You'll have the option of rescheduling if it interferes with a prior commitment. I mean, if there is no prior commitment and it's an inconvenience, I'm not sure if it's a time-sensitive parent issue, we would want to kick that meeting out.
I understand you guys wanting to get these meetings over with. I often am the same way, but this is only saying that if it interferes with a prior commitment. So if we get rid of this time constraint, now this is allowing for those situations to happen where a parent marches up to school and says, I need a meeting with Miss Mousley, and I don't have a prior commitment, but like I might need a day to prepare and like pull student samples or whatever it is, right? I don't know what the parent is complaining about, but I would need time to prepare for that meeting. So we just put the 48 hours in there to protect teachers so that if that were the case, they would have time to prepare for this particular meeting. I mean, don't you want your teachers going into meetings prepared and ready for a response?
If it was a time-sensitive issue, my expectation would be that the teacher would be adequately prepared to walk into that. Otherwise, I don't think it would be good practice for administration to set a time-sensitive meeting with a parent without the teacher being adequately prepared to walk into the room to address it.
Right.
I agree with that, but I think there are some issues that are going to arise that can't wait 2 days. I mean, if it's, I don't like, there's so many scenarios we can go for, but I think there are some time-sensitive issues that occur that require parent conferences that cannot wait 48 hours. But I do believe that good practice would be the administrator giving the teacher enough heads up, if it's on a 6-hour notice or 2-hour notice, that administration would not want to move forward with a parent conference in that situation if the teacher was not adequately prepared. If it were something tricky.
You're saying in an ideal scenario, and yes, we have many good principals that would try and help the teacher out to the best of their ability, but there are also some principals who don't. So we're trying to protect those teachers at those types of schools from being pulled into a last minute meeting. And you're saying hours in advance. Well, those 3 hours, I'm teaching kids. So when am I supposed to then pull the data that I need or whatever it is for the parent meeting?
That I get, but how, I don't think as a school system, we can put in place a practice that says any parent who wants to have a conference automatically, you have to wait 2 days.
Well, I'm allowed to not respond to a parent for 24 hours over email. So maybe we should make it 24 hours. But again, I think this also allows for a cooling down period, because oftentimes parents are showing up to school angry about something. And if they just had some time to like digest it, right, then it may not be as big a deal as they're making it out to be. So maybe it needs to be 24 hours, but I think it shouldn't be that a principal should just be like, hey, a parent is here, you need to have a conference with them.
No,
Be prepared.
I don't think we're arguing. I think also if there is that parent that comes in, oftentimes admin, assistant principal, literacy coach, somebody will get there to cool that parent down firstly, right? And if it's a case that we need a teacher in that scenario, at times I think that happens, but I don't know that there's a principal who would demand it for the reason that you just said, like, because I think we would know that people need to be prepared and not put a teacher into that situation. Daddy's looking at me.
I have worked for a principal that I'm pretty sure
Okay.
would force me to do that.
Yeah.
So,
So I let me put it this way: we would want you prepared for the meeting too.
Right.
Yeah.
So then,
okay.
It benefits nobody
Yeah,
if
correct.
we walk
No,
into a time-sensitive parent conference and folks aren't prepared, but
I think we can get the
Okay.
space there.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure. So why are we crossing out that activities relating to accreditation or minimum educational standards required by law, provided appropriate in-service points will be earned by the professional employees involved in these professional activities? We propose that these shall occur within contract hours. Why are we not privy to that? We're agreeing with that.
Yeah. So go back.
Oh, gotcha,
So I think partially because we did this so recently, right? So this was kind of came up in October or whenever we worked through this. We were kind of doing 2 years in a year here. So and I believe, and you'd have to tell me what your argument was there. But I believe in certain circumstances it may be necessary. But I also believe that we got to a place, because we did change that language in K in October, or whenever we finished last fall. So to have it reopened when we just did, I'm not sure why we did it again, unless something had come up to say that we needed to relook at it. So we would dial up.
Did we change that?
I think we proposed the same thing and it was struck out again.
I think we changed some of the language in that, or definitely in the article that year, or that.
Okay, so I mean, we haven't gotten very far in the article, but I've already peeked and seen that you have crossed basically almost all of our proposals out. And the answer that I feel like you're continuing to give us is A, it hasn't been a problem, and B, we already just opened this article, so we shouldn't make any changes.
That's not what I'm
But
saying.
that's
I'm
the
just
point of
saying.
bargaining.
Right, but when we went through it in the fall, there's certain things that we had started that still need time to be worked through, that we haven't had a whole lot of time. So if there's a compelling reason to look at it again, I think we will, but we didn't strike through everything. We did have,
Okay.
there are things that I think we can agree on.
So we have you.
No. They just put back in, make every effort.
Yeah. We have you. You don't like the verbiage of uninterrupted teacher-directed student-free individual instructional planning. This time is reserved for the teacher to use at the professional discretion for work-related activities. Do we have any, I think we were waiting for some work from the PLC committee, was kind of hinging on a lot of how we're viewing planning time. So what came of that?
Nothing that I've seen that in terms of a report back yet. I think we're still meeting.
Okay.
and I don't know that what your expectation is through some of that committee work would be to look at what the constitution of planning time is as opposed to the minutes of it, or?
I think there's a discrepancy between how we as teachers view our planning time or what we view as instructional planning. Like that should be me in my classroom planning, grading, do what I need to do for my kids. And I feel like the district very much thinks that the PLC process is part of individual instructional planning. And so those things are just getting blurred, the line of how much PLC time can be taken in a teacher's individual planning time. And I think we were hoping that the PLC committee would maybe have recommendations for that, which we haven't gotten any back yet.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So again, it may have been last fall, but in the bottom or the final sentence there in one,
Mm-hmm.
no more than one planning period a week should be reserved for PLC. Did we not work on that last year, right?
Right, but we
So
were,
does that not help direct the rest of it to say, if I've got 5 days a week of planning, because I think the discussion, you're gonna have to jump in and maybe Sally, like I think the discussion was PLC versus CLD, like there was different things,
Mhm.
right? So it's like, what are we PLCing on, which I think is what the committee is working on. We
Mhm.
should be on common sets of data, right?
right.
And then one of those planning sessions a week should be to look at that and how the students are doing.
Right.
So I had
So,
thought that gives the
I think-
whole thing some strength between us. That-
Right. I think it's the idea of not just, yes, you have your PLC that's taking up one of your planning periods, but we also have IEP meetings, we have 504 meetings, we have guidance meetings, like all of these things that I think teachers who know the contract know that that shouldn't occur during planning time. But we would like that language to be clearer for those that don't know the contract, because I've had to turn down multiple IEP meetings that were scheduled during my planning because that's my planning time. I will have an IEP meeting with you in the morning because that's not protected planning time. But this is the cost-effective way that we're trying to make teachers happy in this district. Is we feel like we've got so many things thrown at us during the time that we need in order to be planning. We're spending hours and hours outside of work because our planning time isn't enough and it's not protected right now. And so this was kind of our, like, this is what you can give us to make teachers happy. That's not going to cost you anything. And it seems like it's all just been crossed out again. So I just.
So is the one PLC block, if you were only tied up one block a week, you have enough planning time then?
As long as I don't have other meetings scheduled. I mean, there's never enough planning time.
Correct. And
But
that's the answer I was looking
that
for.
that does help, yes,
Right.
in the amount of work that I end up taking home.
Right. So I'll answer two ways, right? So then I think we wanted the chance to make sure that we can communicate that, right? That, again, this just happened last October, right?
Mhm.
That your five planning periods a week, only one is part of that PLC
Mhm.
structure. And then the PLC committee redefines what that looks like by elementary, secondary. So I think we need some more time on that. I also think we're aware that time is so tight and there isn't enough planning time. We're aware there too. I think part of the supplemental differentiated pay committee that we met, Ms. Dowdy was on that this morning, is to look at those teachers that are in those categories where you would have or might have multiple IEP meetings, et cetera, and try to compensate through that differentiated pay stuff. So that is, I think, a recognition that we understand that might happen and can happen, especially with the growth in ESC.
Mhm.
So to Terry's point, I'm not sure that we can legislate the whole thing, other than that if we get to a point where only one of those 5 sessions a week is tied up, it's your turn, with PLC work, then I think the before and after school thing becomes more set for the IEP. But in times it's going to happen, just as we talked about in the parent showing up for a parent meeting. But that's somewhat, and Ms. Dowdy can tell, that's somewhat what we're trying to acknowledge in the differentiated pay.
Okay, so
Phyllis, will you scroll up just a little bit?
It is a differentiated pay.
So
Committee make any
I don't
report or
have, on my
Which one?
paper, I don't have the green.
I don't have a green either. Also, in our copy, the speech and language pathologist at all levels is not crossed out.
I won't see that right now.
Mm-mm.
This is what you guys gave us, so
Yeah, this, yeah.
that's not what's on there, on the screen.
The green on there is not on here. The strike through of SLP is not stricken through on here. So the question to them, understandably, is this the current version?
Can you print that?
We need to print that then. Is there anything above you that's, if you could just go through to make sure that we have not, keep going on up. Same. That's the same. That we,
Yeah.
no, this one says 24. That one strikes it out completely.
Mine doesn't say 24.
Did you unstrike the 24?
Okay, yes, okay,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
fine.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So it's just anything maybe from those two, let's go the rest of the way down just to see, go to you.
So just throw this one away, if it is not,
So far,
these all the way.
keep going,
Let me have it, so I don't want them to end up in the wrong place.
keep going,
Here, hold on to yours. We'll just stick
keep
them down there.
going. Keep going down. 9 PLC, okay. All right, go to the next page. Okay. Down to 6, ZBA, and then the rest is straight. Keep going to the end. Okay, it's just that.
Yeah.
It's those two changes on you is different, so we'll get that printed so we have a current version.
Okay. So we're talking about an additional 100 minutes of planning shall be established during the normal work week. Again, this is not planning time that is being added. It's just being reserved or protected for teachers so that it's equitable among all types of teachers. Like, again, I think some of the language that we included that you guys crossed out in BB, which is language from Duval's contract, is that there are some teachers have a lot of ESC kids put into their classrooms, at least at the high school level and potentially the middle school level. I'm not really sure elementary. Sally can speak to it, but and the perfect example is that, like, I ended up with no IEPs this year. So I don't have any IEP meetings that I need to attend, whereas the teacher next door to me had 47. So her planning time was taken up a lot more than mine was in the mornings because of how many IEPs that she has. So that was kind of the thought here, is that we want everyone to have a certain amount of planning time every week, and we want it to be equitable, and we want it to protect it so that it is equitable. And so that was the whole point of all of this. And so I guess I'm just trying to figure out why we are so against that.
The Duval language that you mentioned, I mean, I think that's what we're striving for. I think that happens in a lot of schools. I think teachers help sometimes with the placement of students in classes, right? And at the end, I mean, so I think that's what we do. So I don't know why all would end up. I mean, I think time certification is important, and students coming in get assigned to a class with a teacher who's in field. So we're not defaulting teachers out of field. But I think there is acknowledgement that this is what we're looking at in school when we're doing master schedule development. But it's hard to make that planning time as equitable as you're asking. I think it's
Right. And again, it's not going to be perfect right away, but like, we're trying to make these smaller steps, and I feel like at every turn we're just getting denied that from your end.
I think what he's saying is we're already
doing a lot
with the assistance of instructional personnel trying to do these things when it comes, like on BB that you've stricken out, but to guarantee that we'll be able to do that isn't, I mean,
So here's the thing, though, is this isn't guaranteeing anything because it says every effort shall be made, right? So if you guys are saying that this is already happening, then why not put it in the contract?
And it is a problem.
And it is a problem.
I mean, other than your example, you're saying that there are other members
Yeah.
that,
Okay, I'm gonna do my best.
Don't be emotional. It's okay. Take a deep breath.
I'm listening.
Yes?
So my husband, who's a teacher, 21 years, left teaching this year. And this was a lot of the reason. He moved up to middle school. He did 20 years in elementary, 19 and a half, and then has recently moved up to middle. He moved up to middle, and then this year was placed, moved up to eighth. He started in 6th grade, was moved up to 8th grade. He had 3 standard classes and 3 of the next level. The teacher next to him had all of the highest level students. So my husband's classroom had all behavior children, unfortunately, in it. The teacher next door wasn't dealing with that. Then when the teacher next door, their students didn't receive certain grades because they were 8th grade and certain grades needed to be achieved by certain points, those kids were then knocked out of that class and were then added to my husband's class. So it was not fair, it was not equitable. I had even spoken to a district employee about it, and she agreed as well that she didn't understand why it wasn't leveled out across all teachers in that grade level, that each teacher had a couple of those classes. And so this is causing teachers to quit. And I can speak from personal experience because it was my husband who was a teacher for 21 years. And this was a child who growing up is every time, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a teacher. And 21 years. So it is a problem.
Can I ask you a question? So in your research in Duval, so is D is in there, or the language from D is in there that we struck through? That's where you said you got it from, right?
BB.
DD. BB. And so then does it have other qualifiers on there then in terms of time before and after school?
I would have to defer to my team on that
Yeah,
one.
because I think that the more that can happen, I think obviously the better. I think their other issue is, we talked about it before, I mean, students are coming in that door every day. So it's really, really hard. You might have the best master plan calendar or timetable, and then gets thrown open by 10 kids, 20 kids walking in the door. So I don't know that we can legislate for it all, is what I'm saying. But I do know that in the schools that I've been at and worked with other principals, every effort is made to make sure that's equitable.
Okay, but I mean, the prime example would be there's no reason that 20 of those kids couldn't have been in my 2 support classes.
And
Right.
and
I had 4. Sorry, I lied, and I didn't mean that I had 0, but I had 4. Okay, and the teacher next door to me had 47. So why could 20 of those kids not have been in my support class?
what was the answer when you asked that question?
That the schedule worked out better for the other teacher.
But so what happens though if you make before the beginning of the school year, you make a equitable distribution and you put 6 kids with IEPs in one class and 6 kids with IEPs in another class. And it just happens to be a student with an IEP whose parent wants to have a meeting every week. And all of a sudden you have 47 IEP meetings and the teacher next to you has 3 annual reviews.
But that's where that every effort piece comes in, is like, yes, their intent was to try and equally distribute it, right? We're also you're looking at how many times a week does a kid need support, right? Like there are so many facets to an IEP, right? Like some kids are just consult only. So putting a kid in consult only in my class is going to be much different than a kid who needs 4 days of support, right? And so I think you also have to look at those pieces to make it equitable as well, because if you're giving me 20 kids who need 4 days of support, then yeah, that is going to be a lot more work on me. Whereas you're giving the teacher next door to me 20 kids who are consult only, like there is a difference, and that's why that verbiage is in there.
Then you may have ESC students with learning strategies classes that fall at certain periods of the day, which would mandate that in order for them to be able to, let's say, get support facilitation in a math class that the only time it's practical that it can occur would be a particular period on a particular day, because in order to fulfill their IEP, they've got to go to learning strats here and they got to have support facilitation here, here, and here.
Mhm.
There is no equitable way without trampling a student's rights to make sure every teacher gets an equitable approach. So I think that's the problem, is legislating something that there's no guarantee we can do. So if it's not a guarantee, why would we contractually bind to do it? It's aspirational. It's something we want to do and we try to do. But once we put it in the contract, that takes it, to me, to a different perspective where we are contractually bound to make every effort to make it happen. And it may just not be practical because we can't get a support facilitator to come to a certain school at a certain time of day because most of the students have learning strats on a class. So I think that's the biggest problem, is it's not just why is there 3 ESE kids in this class and none in this class. It could be because of the way that the schedule works out and the way that service time, because the SLP comes to the school once a week. And so they, there's just so many variables that go into it. I think that's the concern. But so I don't know the best way to address that. I mean, yeah, you would like it to where one teacher, if one has 40 and one has none,
Right.
a way to address that. But there could be some reason why that was done that those of us at the table don't know. But I mean, just with IEP service time is an example of where I'm not sure you can always be equitable.
So then what would be done to compensate those teachers for the extra work?
Extra work in going to IEP team meetings? Isn't there a supplement committee meeting on that right now?
That's not a supplement.
Yeah, we're
Differentiate pay.
I'm sorry, differentiated pay committees for having to go to different events and different tasks, different responsibilities. That's not.
So you're gonna, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the diff pay was really looking at ESE teachers. So I mean, I think there's, like, we wouldn't be deliberately, there's no one deliberately doing that to default somebody to make them be
No, I don't think-
totally
I don't
uncomfortable
think
and
that
quit the profession.
The principal is like, oh, I want to get back at this teacher and give them 47 kids with IEPs.
Right.
But I do think that needs to be a thought in their head is, I'm going to give this teacher 47 kids with IEPs and I'm only going to give this teacher 4. And then the person next door, I think, is maybe going to have 6, right? Like, there should be a thought of how can I get 10 to 15 of these kids in each of these other teachers' classes?
I don't disagree, but I don't know that it's deliberate. I think it works. It doesn't work. I know that principals aren't running the master schedule.
Right.
Registrars are, so I think it's part of a communication piece, but it is a thought in everybody's head. I think the volume of ESE growth has been pretty compelling, right? So we probably are adjusting to that. So I don't know the answer other than, to Terry's point, it'd be hard to make it equitable. I think we're trying and we're looking at it.
So then would you say in the fall, this happens to Morgan again, she goes to her principal and like, this is not going to work for me. Like, I'm not going to take 47, IEP kids and Tammy next door has 1. I mean, what is the solution? I mean, I
think the solution lies in running and looking at those schedules prior to issuing them. So it's some sort of a summer or early pre-planning schedule, and the ESE team looks at those.
I mean, I don't think that, I think we understand that sometimes, when you have extra kids coming in
St.
so
John's.
get
County,
that.
yeah,
Right. So that's, I think, but obviously that was planned that way. These weren't 47 kids that just came in at the last minute and we had to give 40 new kids to a new
Or a
teacher.
teacher left the last minute that had certifications. I don't know, other than I think analyzing it in the summer, which is difficult, right? But with an ESE team to see about load structures and stuff.
And we do hear about it more than you think.
No,
I mean,
I'm
a
aware.
lot.
I'm aware.
Teachers feel that they've gotten, every year. Here's one of the examples. You're really good, Tammy, with really all the, You're really good with those low kids. Okay? But every year you have given me, and that happens more than you think. A lot. That's what burns teachers out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a disservice to the kids. It's also a disservice to the teacher in so many ways. So there's got to be some moves to making sure that this is in the contract. But
So what did you give us?
not a lot. We're not putting pay for classroom coverage in the contracts either.
So, and I talked briefly with Tammy in a separate conversation yesterday. So, I mean, it's year one of that MOU. So we're struggling with that. I think we're struggling with the interpretation of some of the language in there. I think both from a teacher perspective, from a paraprofessional in certain different area. And so I think we want to keep it an MOU and then rework some of the language in there. So we're not trying to radically change it. I think it works where it's working, and then we have uncovered some things that we need to correct. So I think our push on that is to take it out, put it back into an MOU, but craft the language. Have you read the language?
For
Yeah.
this?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I think similar maybe to the prior discussion on
The new language?
that language.
That's our language, isn't it?
Yeah, I wrote this MOU.
Yeah.
I personally wrote this MOU.
So I think we'd like to keep it as an MOU, but we do want to work and craft language differently.
Okay.
There are a lot of problems, as we have seen.
The other, why are we crossing out speech and language pathologists at all levels shall have planning in U1, which isn't crossed out on here, but
Okay, so Phyllis, pull that up. Back to U1.
Yeah, that was the one that's different.
So that's why it's different now. So, and I apologize because that change was made late, which is why I didn't get printed correctly. So we just requalified by statute there, the classroom teachers and who gets, who gets access, or what does the planning time look like? So if you look at section 1.10.2, it looks at who's classified under that classroom teacher piece. So that was the only change we made there. You got fresh copies, folks?
They're saying that you're covered. So putting the statute.
Because that statute also does not cover pre-K teachers. It's K-12. So the statute doesn't cover pre-K. So, I mean, pre-K's had planning, but the district could say it's not enforceable because it's not per law. But pre-K is not in Florida statute under 1012.01. Just as an FYI,
right.
If you're going to use that, then that means that pre-K teachers won't get planning time.
okay, so let me just make sure I understand this correctly. Your reason for putting in the green for that statute is because you think that speech and language pathologists are covered under the definition of classroom teachers. It has nothing to do with the instructional planning piece.
So what I believe the language was looking at who was covered from an instructional plan, and Terry's got it pulled up there, by that statute.
Okay.
In an instructional capacity.
Sure. So is the intent to exclude speech language pathology in planning for it?
I think the intent is to clarify who's covered under it, so.
But by doing that, you're excluding them.
And another group of employees.
Well, again, I think when we put it in there, it was looking at, dealt with this sometimes with some of the things that came from the state, who was covered from that instructional planning viewpoint by that section. So that was our attempt to go back to that language. They can.
Okay.
So just something for you to review. I have clean copies.
Oh, sure. Thanks.
Okay, I have clean copies of it from that. Can I have your other one?
Yeah, this is old one too.
That's all good.
Ripped up my notes.
You know? All right, you want to move forward?
Yep. Ten.
All right.
10. This is the same language that's on that.
So what did they give us? What did you give us in that article?
Here's the cost of them.
Bring back to it, right?
No, what did you not strike through
Which one?
in Article 6? I'm just trying to figure out, you said you gave us some things.
Oh, I was talking about the whole body of it.
Oh,
The other.
because I don't think you gave
Oh,
us,
I
but, okay. Okay.
Not a lot.
I don't think I'm good.
I think the language that the strike throughs in our position on Article 10, almost said X, is the same as the language that's already in what we just looked at.
I don't think I can.
Sorry, I'm used to being told I'm loud. For purposes of Article 10, as it relates to teacher in service, as you can see from the language there, I think we would like to just keep it as is in the current language, which is reflective in what we just passed over in Article 6. This same paragraph appears under U9. It's the same language twice.
Why is it bolded in 9 and not in Article 10? The part after what you struck out is bolded.
Because if it's bolded, it's
the
yeah, that's the
original
original language that I think you wanted to strike out
Okay.
in your proposal. And
Yeah.
the bold is we'd like to just keep with the current contract language. And does this,
So that would be a lot easier, not bold it and just say CCL, current contract language.
Sure.
Because it gets confusing. Now we're adding in another dynamic.
we've got to come up with a uniform way
To
to
be
do
fair, I
this.
think I've done that as
Yeah.
well when I
Okay.
put stuff across. So.
All right.
Okay. I guess what we're looking for is clarification that the district or the school can take 2 Wednesdays per month with in-service activities. the other 2 Wednesdays on a normal month are for teacher directed planning. And if there's a 5th Wednesday, it's also for teacher directed planning. Is that the intent of the language on your end?
So again, I guess that we went through this in October, right? So here's what I think putting PLC in there changes the intent of what was previously written, right? So 2 of them are in service, 2 of the 4 are in service. One was a PLC, one's reserved for unencumbered planning or whatever.
Okay, so
And
if
if there's a 5th, that's also unencumbered. That's what we agreed to in October.
okay, so but I'm just saying, like at my school, my PLC is not on Wednesday. So if I don't have PLC, that's individual planning, and admin can't take that from me.
Well, that would be the side page. I don't know that. What I'm saying is 2 of them are in service activities or can be billed as they probably don't happen
Right.
like all of them aren't filled, I would imagine. One is reserved or visioned as a PLC. One is reserved or visioned as unencumbered. The 5th would be unencumbered. That's what we agreed to in October. If you're asking to change it, then we're changing what we did in October, which is fine. And I get the theme of, because all of these relate to time, and I get it. So to some degree, we're going to have to come to the middle on this. But that's the way that was written, and putting PLC changes the dynamic of what that in-service day can be, right? So
Right, but
we're open to listen on that.
I'm just asking if that one that is reserved for PLC, if the PLC does not occur on that Wednesday, the principal cannot say, well, we're going to have a full faculty meeting now.
I mean, I think it happens. Is that what you're asking? It's PLC
That's
or
what we're trying to get clarified in the contract is.
so PLC
2 Wednesdays, the principal can take a district activity or school-based in-service or whatever, right? 1 Wednesday could be PLC. If the PLC is not meeting on that Wednesday, who does that time go to? Does it go back to the teacher, or can the principal take it?
So
That's what I want clarified.
So right now, it's pretty clear. 1 Wednesday per month is reserved for individual teacher planning.
Okay.
That's pretty clear now. So if you're asking us to change that, then ask us to change that. Ask us to look at that. So I think in your example, it probably would go unencumbered that day, right? Because if I'm not running a PLC, I wouldn't imagine I've got the time to structure something else, but I don't know. And there's probably, because your example is probably a high school, it's probably different examples in elementary, right? So some of the disconnect on this is elementary, I would imagine. So I think I know, but just because I think I know, but I need you to, but right now, the reason we put it back in there in bold was to say, this is what we did in October. So, and if this is not what we intended to do in October, then come back. Because I think this and the MOU for virtual planning days relates a lot to some of this language too, right? So if we could give you anything here or whatever the language was, there's ways that we may be able to look at it in these others. Does that make sense?
Yep.
It's getting better, isn't it?
Starting off with the, may want to jump out of order. Long one. I'll take these 2 and then pass those. I said, I think so.
You have enough?
You have enough?
There you go. Here's more.
I see the old 6s as well.
Pardon?
Just need the old 6.
I know.
Just so I don't, because,
These are the old 6s. Yeah.
just sure they're in the old 6 bin.
Put it in the old 6 then.
try to talk into this. Let's make sure as we look at the paper copy, we're tracking. Okay. Part of these is we make last minute changes too, and then we print. I know. We're I think we're good on this one. So I think in that was accepting your proposed language. Previous contract said must. Again, this is Article 11 on leave provisions. I think maybe asked to was your proposed language, if I recall.
Yeah.
I think on paragraph 3, there was a rejection of the language that you'd proposed all the way at the top, page 1, but we proposed some fill-in language there.
Yeah. So just to save you some time, all of
Yeah.
this we already
We
agreed
agreed
to.
on,
It's
yeah.
just bereavement that we countered with.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Then it they counted. They did 5.
Yeah.
Thank you for catching up on that. I left my notebook, so. Yeah, it was real, yeah.
Religious, we had already talked about. Yeah.
So then we're up to the bereavement.
Yeah, no, I'm getting to it. Yeah, we were just making sure the one that we were looking at was we were on the same page because we had made some last minute changes. So just to kind of recap this provision, when it was proposed to our side, the proposal was for 5 days.
Mhm.
Our counter at the last session was 1 day, but I believe it was striking out the language about the 0 sick leave balance. The follow-up to that conversation is what's reflected in here, which is going back to the original contract language, but agreeing to add the language that you had proposed as it relates to miscarriage. But I think this is still a topic that's open for discussion, is how to handle the bereavement language and the bereavement time.
What does that mean?
It means our proposal is 3, but
That we can still counter? I mean, our counter is going to be getting rid, like, we're fine with 3 days if we don't have to get rid of our 0 sick leave balance. Like, we will agree to that. That's what we need, and that's what we're asking for. Nassau just added another day without needing 0 sick leave balance. Flagler currently has 5. I mean, this is the way of how things are working now. Not every employee is going to use this every year, right? Hopefully employees don't have to use it, but I mean,
It's the right thing.
it's
to
the
do.
right thing to do, right? Like,
Do you have any idea what the cost would be?
that's not my job.
Well, and nor how would we cost
Right.
this out? I mean, I'm going to predict, Mr. King, that you're going to have 5 deaths in 1 year. I don't know how we would cost that out. And I hope you don't have 5 deaths in 1 year. There's no way to cost it out. It's the right thing to do. Most counties in our area all have bereavement leave. You guys get vacation time. You could take your vacation time to do bereavement leave.
So we have bereavement leave too.
But you could take a vacation
But what I'm
day.
saying is we have bereavement leave now. It's in the
Mhm.
contract. You get 3 days if you're out of leave. So it's not like we don't have it. You just,
But you have another avenue that you could
I'm
take
not talking
actual
about me.
leave.
I'm saying here, it's already in the contract.
Right, but this affects people's retirement, right? Like if they're having to use their days, that's affecting how many days they have left when they go to retire that they can cash in on. This affects working mothers who are constantly using their days in order to care for their sick children or whatever. I mean, this is we feel a small ask that would make a world of a difference.
Well, the other thing is, I guess I'm confused, is that you had countered with 1 day
Right.
with no sick leave. Now isn't that regressive bargaining? Now you're
No.
going back to current contract language? I mean, you offered it 1 day with no sick leave balance, and now you're going back to current contract. I mean, you just regressed.
Except no, because
No.
I disagree with that. The original proposal that you had at 5 days was to strike the sick leave balance
Mhm.
language.
Yep.
In light of that, we were willing to do 1 day. So our position, if you want to strike the regular sick leave balance, is 1 day. If you don't want to strike the regular sick leave balance, then we would like to keep the contract as is. That's not regressive bargaining.
But your counter is original contract language.
Because your last position at our last session was that you wanted to have the regular sick leave balance stricken from the contract, which we did not agree to do.
But you did in your
With 1
proposal. You did.
In the first one, because
Right.
you had proposed 5 days, we said we would be willing to do that if it was 1 day. Your counter to that was, not your counter, but your position as it related to the 5-day proposal was contingent on the striking of the sick leave. Going along with that, we were willing to do 1. You rejected that at the last session, the 1 day and the sick leave balance. So since you rejected that, we are back to where we would consider.
We countered with 3. We didn't outright reject it.
Right.
We accepted your change of let's get rid of sick leave balance, and we countered with let's maybe get a couple more in there, a couple more days not having to use your sick leave balance. Again, I understand that this is going to cost the district some money, but
Oh, yeah.
it's not every employee, it's not every year, it's not accruable, right? So like there's going to be lots of people who don't use this year after year. But the ones who do have to use it, it makes a big difference. In my working conditions and how happy I am as an employee, I'm already going through a tough time having to, mourn the death of a family member. And now I have to worry about if I have sick leave or not. We're trying to give you ways.
You don't
make
have to worry if you have sick leave.
I have to worry.
I mean, if you have sick leave, you use it. If you don't have sick leave, you get 3 days. So it's not true to say you don't have to worry about sick leave. You know what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying, but I shouldn't have to use my
Yeah.
What happens if I have 3 days of sick leave and 3 days left, right, of the school year because I've been out or whatever, right? I've used 5 of my 8 sick leave days, and then I do have someone who dies in my family, and then I have to use my 3 days for bereavement. But then after that happens, right? Maybe I need to be sick again, but I have 0 days because I had to use 3 of my sick days to attend a funeral.
I mean, someone who's been out on FMLA or has to go out. So I've used, like for me, I haven't used any bereavement days this year, but the year
There's a sick leave
before,
bank. There's a sick leave bank that people
the sick
can
leave
apply.
bank, that sick leave bank
That's not
doesn't,
for-
Understand, but I
that
think
sick leave bank doesn't apply to this. You can
So-
transfer sick leave to someone, but
And-
it comes down to you are disenfranchising people who are single parents or parents who have to save their sick days to use to take care of their children.
Okay, and going back to my instance, right? Let's say now I have to pull out of my sick time, or if I'm out of sick leave days, what happens? I'm now not getting paid for taking off work, right? And so now teachers are not getting paid.
And you have to pay the other portion of the insurance.
And how frequently does that happen?
I have no way of knowing, but I know I'm sure it's happening.
I think to Terry's point, our sort of contention on this is whether or not you have to use the sick leave bank prior. So that's where we come back with.
This was like one of the top things on our survey from employees. Literally one of the top things.
Okay.
Okay. You got
12. Right. This is the one where we just have to project it.
Oh, so Morgan, this was the one relative. I think we're at the same place. So the final piece on that was repost and internal only shall be posted for 3 calendar days. You're familiar with the discussion? So you did not want internals to have, or that your position was. So I think we're okay with it. I do think it hurts I don't think this is good for, no, I said it last week, but we're okay with letting that go with that. But I think it did help employees because part of the language was about transfers and people wanting transfers. This would have given internal transfers a shorter window, especially as you get through that crunch time where the transfer window closes. They know the position was open. So our position was this is actually helping an internal employee. So, but if we're okay taking it out. Right, and I think that was the only thing on that article, so that can then be TA.
Okay.
That make sense?
Yep.
What was this one?
15.
Got it.
Did you get that?
Yeah, I have an extra.
Oh.
Say it again. So, okay, so on this, Morgan, part of the discussion here, again, this was dealing a bit with consistency, which I talked about from the first piece. And we had tried something similar to this before in terms of modifying the day or the time for psychologists. And it didn't work, all right? So we had a lot of feedback that it was difficult to manage. It was difficult from a communication viewpoint. It was difficult to get the right help in the summer. So this is something that had been tried in the past in terms of a modification to the days. And the evidence that we had is it wasn't successful. So I don't know if there's another way to look at it, or if it's something that you want us to continue to look at. I could certainly provide more evidence based on the research, but it wasn't successful. We were looking at the number of people, the times that they were trying to do, the change in trying to go back and forth from different contracts or different time frames. So that was our position. If you want us to
So,
look at it.
I would just want more clarification on what does it mean that it was not successful?
And when? Because this hasn't happened probably for quite a few years.
Kathy, you know.
It was when Scott Sherman
Scott,
was
yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And then psychologists got to pick which
Right.
days they were going to be off during the year.
Yep.
And the complaints or the issues were that when they needed people, they weren't there when they needed them, whether it be during the summer or during the school year. And so that kind of was what we have it based upon, is just the last time that we did that. But it was a while ago. It was when Scott Sherman was here, and I don't even remember when he left the district a while ago.
Yeah, that's been a while.
14, I think.
Yeah. So that's not good data.
Oh, it is. Well, I would say the difference would be, there's probably more, right? There's probably more psychologists now, so some of the work has changed. So we did go back and forth looking at whether or not a certain number could be, to Kathy's point. But it's the only data I had, so I don't know that it's not valid just because it's 10 years old. But to Kathy's point, but again, if it's changed, the number of psychologists would certainly have changed since 2014. To some degree, the body of work might have changed in terms of some of it being able to do in different venues, etc. So as it stands now, that's where our position is.
I think we have some psychologists in the room, so we'll be asking them.
Do you know, by chance, how many people will take?
It was about half.
Understanding that their pay would also cut
Yes.
accordingly. Okay.
Yeah, they did.
Just making sure. Sometimes people don't.
No, they
Yeah.
understood that.
Yeah.
Half is what you said.
Mhm.
How many total are there?
There's like 30 something.
23, 22.
Yeah, 22.
Much
Okay.
less, yeah.
It's close enough.
Around.
This wasn't just, I mean, we surveyed our psychologists to ask this, so it wasn't just something we threw out there.
Yeah,
So sometimes,
I know.
okay. So so on the pre-plan, where was the working remotely planning days MOU? Where do we end up with that?
I think it's on your side because we proposed the January day.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have taken it back out,
Okay.
the January day, and I think the discussion was, is it working? It is working to a certain degree. I think there's also some discussions that it isn't working, or people aren't where they're supposed to be, or people are posting from different places. I'm not saying all that's valid or not saying true. So we've taken it back out for now, and then I think, but it does relate, I believe, to everything else we talked about tonight relative to planning. That is unencumbered time. There's a discussion that sometimes that planning can be better collaboratively as well, right? If they were together as 10th, 5th grade teachers. But for the sake of discussion, we've taken it back out.
So,
Something we just did last year.
It was 1 year.
Right.
Last year's first year.
That's what I thought.
Excuse me for 1 second.
You only have one?
Mm-hmm.
Wait till he gets back.
you just talked about how teachers could work collaboratively. Could I not jump on a Teams call and work collaboratively with my team from wherever I'm at?
From wherever I'm at. I was on board till you said that. You probably should.
I mean, from a coffee shop or from my house, what does it matter? If I'm being productive and I'm doing the work that I'm supposed to do. Honestly, I'm more productive in a coffee shop because my dogs leave me alone for every 5 seconds. I have very needy dogs that want my attention every 5 seconds. So, you know what I'm like, I think teachers plan from where works for them. Was there a large number of teachers who didn't turn in their grades on time?
So grades was one issue, and I think you asked me to do, that was part of what you asked last session, was were there other concerns or complaints? And certainly it may just be a management thing, about communicating that we shouldn't be posting or communicating as to where we're not or where we are during those days. So I do think there's still some room there. I agree that I think planning can be productive elsewhere. And I also agree that it may be something that we look at in conjunction with everything else that we passed back today. But there has been incidences where people aren't planning on that day or one of those days, and they're not in the coffee shop planning. So I don't want it to spoil it for everybody, but.
Okay.
So can planning be done collaboratively on teams? Is
Yeah.
that your question? Yes.
Okay,
In a non-public setting, because you're going to be talking about students,
right.
obviously.
Well, I mean, planning is not always.
Sure.
Not always
Right.
student
There's
specific.
not always
I know.
student specific, but
Right, but I think we are struggling with planning. We are struggling with planning time. I think the whole state is, right? So if this is something that we want to talk about, I do believe that then it is an acknowledgement that there's a body of work that needs to be done on those days. And we've got to professionally trust that that's being done as well.
And it's just another good thing to give
Sure.
teachers that respect and professionalism that they're doing the work. And if someone's not doing their work, you have a pretty good discipline procedure in place.
Sure.
If someone can show that someone is in the Caribbean and posting, whatever, I guess it doesn't really matter if they are doing the work and I'm sitting in my car driving and I'm doing and posting all the work and all my grades are being done and all my lesson plans and everything's done. Who really cares where it happens? But this is also another non-cost benefit to employees that would help morale.
it is. And I feel like this is one of those things where I feel like there may have been a handful of teachers who probably didn't do what they were supposed to, and the whole is now being punished for it, when those teachers could have been notified directly that, hey, you weren't where you're supposed to be. This is our next steps or whatever.
No, there isn't a punishment quotient to, I just think we need to make sure that there's alignment between some of this stuff. So like that there is a connection between this and some of the other things that we pass back and forth, right? As well as some of the things that we're not able to do, right? Just because of constraints that Terry mentioned. So rather than taking them all in isolation, we need to look at it as more of a body. We're not opposed to, obviously, to looking at it again. I think where we stood on it last year, but I don't think it's fair to say it's a punishment. I just think it's that you asked if there's been, the superintendent has asked us to look at it too, right? Because there is a suggestion that at least on one of those days, it could be more productive to be collaborative at a school event. And it'd be hard to refute that, right? If you had, again, 10 fifth grade teachers all together, they could probably plan differently than alone, right? So
If they choose that,
if they choose it, right,
Right.
it wouldn't be
because planning days are planning days for the individual.
right, but I mean,
But we have to be careful because then you start crossing in of taking that, once again, taking away time.
No, but certainly people plan collaboratively and plan deeper and better. So I think there's both. So no, it wouldn't be scripted planning. I'm just saying that they could do it together. All right.
There's nothing else to say.
All right. Is it our article now?
Yes.
I think you're on MOU. But
Yeah, we needed Article 6 back in order to be able to counter on the MOU, so. Marcus.
Gotcha.
Why am I passing it to my people? I don't know what's happening.
There's enough for your people too.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I told her. I knew we did that.
I don't know what session we're in anymore. Thank you.
This is the fifth one.
No, I have a notebook I bring with me tonight. I don't have my notebook.
Sally, do you guys want to
I'll make
contact
corrections
us?
later. I usually keep
Sorry.
it all,
all right, where are we?
so I know this.
This is the only article you have.
Do you mind the reminder on the color coding? Is it the
Yep.
same as what we just did?
Kind of.
Except blue, maybe?
Yeah, I basically just bolded changes that we made, which some of it was stuff that we had crossed out, or that you had crossed out, I should say. So number 2, our language was green, your language was blue. No, your language was green, our language was blue. So we crossed out the application will remain open during the last day in January. And again, we think that January is too soon for this internal transfer window, right? So many of us have not had our second evaluation yet. It's too soon after the start of the quarter for teachers to decide if they're ready to move schools yet. I think once January is hit, we're now, at least more than halfway through the school year, and teachers would have a better idea. And that's how previous practice that's been working. And so we just want to keep that month of February. 3, we felt like, I heard your argument, Lane, about how, there could be however many applicants applying for just a random, for a school that's posting vacancies, but we don't know exactly which position it is. And so I think your intent is that we are now posting actual positions that the school knows or anticipates having open. And so we're just changing the vacancy in school to position to make it clear that that is what we are in fact posting. And then we felt like if they're not guaranteed an interview, then really there's no benefit for the current employee. So I get that you can't just interview everyone. And so we tried to pick a number that we felt was manageable, right? So this again is at least 7 applicants per position, right? So again, at Tokoi, we have 7 positions open, then we're gonna at least 7 people asked to transfer to Tokoi. We only have 1 position, but we're gonna interview all 7 of them. If 10 of them apply, then we're gonna pick the 7 that we like and we're gonna interview them. If 3 apply, we're interviewing all 3. So that was kind of the idea. If it's, let's say it's a first grade position at a school, again, if there are 7 applicants who wish to apply for that position, then they're going to interview all 7, and then they could make their choice from that 7. So instead of saying that all people who apply will get an interview, we understand your concern of, hey, that's a lot of people to interview, so we're trying to limit it to a number. And then we are conceding to June 15th for kind of that last day of early transfer. I think those are the only changes that were made. And I think the 2 biggest things are what we're asking for here is that your transfer period is February, and that they have at least a good chance of getting interviewed and potentially getting the position that they're trying to transfer for.
So just the only changes that you've made from the last proposal that we made is what you bolded.
Until February, and at
Okay.
least 7.
So just on page 1.
Yes.
Yes. And then the underline bolded part is like new. So that at least 7 transfer applicants per position is what we
I see
had
that.
proposed, the transfer applicants before, and that was crossed out. So I just bolded all of that again, saying that we would like that back in. But then the at least 7 and per position is new language that we've added to clarify.
So, can I ask a question? Okay, so on 2, are we saying the application remain open until the last day of February? And then if you read 3, employee seeking a transfer, complete the addition application, position, so we're saying there, the hiring authority may utilize the posting through June 15th.
Right, so that was language that I thought that just meant that you would still have that list. It didn't necessarily mean that, if you didn't end up pulling someone from that list, it would still be there for you to pull from through June 15th. That doesn't mean that you can only pull from that list from, basically what our intent in 2 is to keep it like we did this year, where people can apply for an early transfer in February. The interviews happen in March, and then it's normal hiring practices after March.
Is there, in your mind or in this work, is there a difference between early transfer and transfer?
Yes.
What's the difference?
The early transfer is that it's internal only employees who during a specified time because in April and May and early June, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have positions that are posted for internal and external applicants, correct? Yeah. So the early transfer is that, yes, it's just for internal employees.
Yeah, I understand that, but
Okay.
my question was, is there a difference between early transfer and transfer? Because we worked through both sets of language. So if we're saying, we would say any applicant, I think this is what we were saying, any current employee who wishes to transfer, we would open up that transfer portal and that can stay open until May, or whatever the date was, June. And so then the hiring authority can pull from that at any time.
So, but what I'm saying is that only for internal employees? You're not posting these positions to external
So
employees?
in conjunction with that, we would also post external positions.
Right, and that's what we're saying is we want a period where it's just internal employees that are able to move to whatever school that they want to move to before you're opening it up to everyone.
So I think that's why there's a disconnect, because then if we leave it open till June 15th, we're going to post externally before then. So we would kind of run both at the same time. So I'm going to say 70, 80 people apply for internal transfers.
Okay.
We're going to keep that live. They can still go back on a posting if it's more specific, right? Their application will still be live, but we will then be also simultaneously running external postings.
Right, but I think the intent here is that when it is internal only for that month, right, that they are, at least 7 of those people who are applying for that position are getting the interviews. Once after March, after that interview period of March, which is how we did it this year, then yes, it'll be posted internally and externally. And if they didn't get a spot in that early transfer period, then they could then still, use other postings as they see fit.
So what would they be applying for in January?
In February.
Or well, you're opening it in January,
No,
your proposal.
our proposal is
Oh,
February.
okay.
Yeah.
So we'll just,
The proposal is just,
we'll
we'll open it until
Until
the last day in February. It doesn't say when.
Okay. So yeah, our intent was to keep it the month of February. I think that's what it said, because you guys had crossed out in January, I think, or maybe that was us. I don't know. This is getting confusing. But
No, so we have.
yes, I think
we have
your
it
intent
done.
was January. Our intent is February. The month of February, there is a window open for employees, current employees, to look at where there are potential positions available, right? This is very similar to the MOU language. These are the 2 big things that we are asking for. Is we still have that early transfer, and we hear you on, you can't and interview every single person that applies for that transfer, but I think you can interview a set number because otherwise there's no benefit to the employee for saying, hey, I want to be at Tokoi if we're not even going to guarantee them an interview.
So if we keep it in the current format, then I don't know that it helps to get you where you want to go, but So.
Okay,
kinda
so,
let-
and maybe I
let me work it,
misinterpreted
yeah.
what
Because
your language
what
was.
would I be applying for in January or February? I would just be applying to go to Tokyo. But I don't have necessarily anything. So we were trying to bring,
But I mean, from what I know, I was part of the hiring process for English. Tokoi knew what positions we would have available. At least some of them
Some,
that we're anticipating, right? So that's what would be posted. Is we know we're going to need an English, two world history, and a math, or I don't know what it was, but so those would be posted for internal only employees during the month of February. Tokoi
so
would
let
then
me
pull
think of it
those
this
for
way.
interviews.
So we have an internal system that opens, we're saying January just because of time, but January closes at the end of February, and then we open externally after that.
After the interviews have happened for those employees, yes,
And then all transfers are done by June 15th.
correct. Unless the principals mutually agree,
And human resources,
correct,
There's a better way to write it.
there has to be.
right. I think, but that is what we are looking for. So maybe we interpreted some of your language differently, but I don't, if
So I
that's what
think
you
by
guys
our
are,
language, it would give them more opportunity because the internal transfer portal is open until June 15th. So you're limited it to a certain degree
how are we limiting it?
because you're going to shut it down by your proposal and
It would, the internal transfer is, I don't know how else to explain this. The internal like our early transfer is how we have been doing things, right? It's what we did this year. Then after March, you are posting positions both internally and externally, right? So if out of the 7 interviews that Tokoi did, we didn't like any of the 7 applicants that we interviewed that were an internal position, right? In April, we would then still post the position internally and externally. That internal person could then reapply. Obviously, if they got an interview and didn't get hired, I don't know why they would, but they could, okay? But also, so can external people, right? But if we're just saying that external people can apply at any point as well, then you're not giving any benefit to your current employees.
that's not what I'm saying. So I'll try once more. So, and again, we can.
And we may need to scrap all of this language and
We
rewrite
can caucus. So to
completely,
say,
yes.
January, I'll just go broad. January, we're going to open an internal.
Okay.
Only internal people can
Correct.
apply to that, right? That we're saying stays open all the way till June 15th, the last day of the transfer,
Okay.
right? Then we reserve the right to post externally whenever we see that's coming, right around the budget time or before. So we are running 2 parallel things. Anybody who wants to internally transfer, right? You have a jump on it because you got a month or whatever, 2 months, but then it stays live till June 15th rather than pulling them off and saying, hey, now you got to jump on and posting that as internal and external, which somewhat we dealt with this year. And then, so if that starts January, then it runs. We communicate it runs. And then as they see positions coming up, they put it on there too. And then we would open it to everybody in March. That's kind of the language that we were thinking.
But that doesn't guarantee that the internal candidate is going to get an interview.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're,
That's a separate piece. I was just talking about the language of,
Okay.
okay.
I didn't talk about the transfer, like
Okay.
the number of interviews. I'm just
Okay.
saying the language of how the structure, how we do it.
Okay.
And again, I don't want to limit. I just think, well, I want to make sure I understand, similar to the
Right.
planning or the PLC Wednesday stuff, because I
Okay.
think these things are kind of used interchangeably, and certainly internal or priority transfer, whatever. We just need to make sure that we understand what does that mean.
Yeah, as long as there's a period where internal employees can apply before it gets posted externally, and then they are then guaranteed an interview. I mean, I think that we're on the same page in that case. And again, it doesn't have to be everyone's guaranteed an interview, but at least a portion of them. We're proposing at least 7.
Okay. Anything else
That's
in
it.
here, Mayor?
I'm sure there's. better way to write it.
Yeah,
It's-
we might just need to like start over. There's so much back and forth. So,
I mean, are you anticipating that there be interviews done and decisions made by a date certain before it's opened up
Correct.
externally?
Yes.
yes.
I don't think it says that. That's
So-
the,
so- Yeah, let me
Well,
qualify that
by
because
interviewing them, they would be making a decision. Like either if they interview them and they like them,
So-
You mean
so-
hiring decision?
yeah, so
Yeah.
the philosophy of having teachers want to transfer, we talked about that, we're okay with that. We
Right.
want them where they want to be too. There is the constraints of when budget happens and what we know we have.
right.
So we sometimes do know we have 40 vacancies right now, today, right? So we would know certain things, right? Or people that we know that aren't coming back. So we are tied into when the budget piece is. So I'm not sure we could say interview, select.
by
you know,
date certain.
I'm not sure
That's
we
what I'm
could do that,
hearing now.
which is why that we said, then why would we shut it down in March? Because, but again, that's for you to discuss, because if we left it open, they still have the opportunity to move, but, right? Because we only know a certain thing. We feel this whole thing needs to start
Right.
earlier.
Well, and I'm not saying that you're going to know every single position that's available. We're just saying anticipated vacancies we can get a jump
Right.
on, right,
Right.
before it's posted externally.
And I think, do you have any numbers on how successful people were transferring this year?
I know at Tokoi, I think we maybe took internal transfers for all of our early decisions.
So the answer is very successful.
At one school, yeah.
At one school, yes.
I don't know, do
But-
you guys have that data? We would love to see that.
Yeah.
I mean, and then I think we've made it more accessible. And then, and she's not here, but Parker does a phenomenal job of, kind of following up. But we need to start it earlier because of the growth as well. And so that's why we lines. But we'll caucus and talk about it.
So 6:51.
I mean, 7:30?
7:45.
Good, Jess?
I feel like 7:45 is probably safer. I feel like
Hours?
Sure.
Let them
Yeah, they got more.
Okay.
More stuff, I think. Which one do you
So
want?
do you guys want to start? Or you guys only have one. That's fine.
go. No, you. That
Are you
looks
sure?
good.
Okay.
You're good.
Okay, we're on 15.
15. Okay.
Oh, I guess I don't have audience, so I don't have to kill it. Okay.
Nope.
We spoke with a few school psychologists who were in the crowd audience here tonight. And they were around when the 10 years ago when you guys said that it didn't work. And it sounds like you guys let them choose what days they were working. And that seemed like it was a nightmare for HR, which that's not what we're proposing. We're proposing, you guys can kind of work it how you want to work it. But I think what was mentioned by one of the psychologists is that they did 20 days at the beginning of summer and then 4 days when they came back for pre-planning. Everyone's working those set days if they're on the 11-month schedule. It sounds like about half of our school psychologists want that schedule, want a 10-month contract, even if it is less money. So I would maybe have them choose by seniority who's been in the district the longest. You're going to tell me if you want 10 or 11th, and then go down the list, and then it's decided, and then you can kind of go from there. It will save the district money. I mean, I think it's like $6,000 per person that would go on the 10-month schedule. So so I guess we don't really have a counter because we're wondering, I don't know if you guys wanted to discuss it more, or you had some maybe language in mind, or we could come to an agreement here. But that's where we're at. Do we have any further discussion, or you want me to move on?
No, we can move on.
Okay. So, okay, Article 10. We left all of your changes, and then we are just counter proposing that instead of one Wednesday per month will be reserved for individual teacher planning, it's 2 Wednesdays. So it's very clear, 2 Wednesdays are for in-service activities, 2 Wednesdays are for individual teacher planning. If there's that 5th Wednesday, that'll be individual teacher planning. If the teacher so decides to use PLC as part of their teacher planning, then they can do that. But
Oh, okay. So
Okay.
what color is it?
it's blue, but
Okay.
you can't see it on that screen.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Hi.
Okay.
Now what do I have? Service I just did. Leave. I did not save any of my changes. Oh, that's theirs. That's why. It's not mine. What article is mine?
Oh, I don't know. But,
Oh, okay. No.
I mean,
There you go.
Okay, so we're countering. Again, we want who has utilized all of their regular leave to be struck out, but we're countering with 2 days would be granted instead of the 1 that you had originally countered with. Okay. And what's the other one we got? Oh, 12.
Oh, 12.
No, we have it right.
Oh, theirs. Yeah, it's very cute.
Is that the only thing, and that's the only thing to leave, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Mhm. I think we
12,
should see.
12 we can sign.
Because we-
Oh, that's right. That's why I didn't
12
have
we
it.
can be
Okay.
signing that.
Okay.
12, we're going to TA what you guys passed with. That's why I don't have it.
That's just the
in my-
one word, right?
The
Struck through.
internal
Reposting.
only, yeah.
Or not reposting.
Yeah.
internal only.
And then the proposal for the MOU of working remotely. We will sign it in hopes that maybe in future years you will bring us back that third virtual planning day. But we're good to go on that one. Everybody just sign it.
You have an extra one, that'd be great. Right there. It's magic. It's magic.
So you still holding Gaines?
Yes. Article 6, do we want to discuss that now or do we want to wait till your,
Want to do your counter? And this is really going to be discussion because we don't really
Yeah,
have.
and I think
Kind of where we
our,
are
our
too.
our counter is a discussion, but it's
Okay.
a discussion in a good place. So if you want to go.
okay. Okay, so if we look at you, Jesse, do you want me to display it again?
If you could do.
Okay.
You.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just pulling it up for those online.
You. Okay.
So we don't have anything in writing, obviously, but we are basically, if you are reading section 1012.012A, it's very unclear whether or not speech language pathologists, pre-K teachers are covered under that. And we want to ensure that every person who is instructing children for a majority of their day is ensured planning time. So we just feel like this isn't clear. And is that the intent, is that you are including those people or you're not including those people?
Who are the people?
Speech language pathologists, pre-K teachers, because the statute currently says K-12. Basically anyone who is instructing students for a majority of their day.
So I'll answer this. Is there a group that you mentioned that's not getting planning time now in that group?
I think there is a struggle with speech language pathologists to get planning time. We're just, again, worried with using your language because pre-K teachers are for sure excluded from that. So
Who, can I ask a follow-up? Who manages the speech language pathologist schedule?
in terms of like when they get their planning time, they have to put it in their day. But again, they've got so many caseloads and IEP meetings and whatnot that oftentimes what's happening is that they're having to cancel sessions, they're having more meetings, they're having trouble meeting deadlines. I mean, they need the planning time, and I think that we just want it in the contract so that it's clear that if they aren't getting their planning time, we can then point to the contract and say, well, they need to be getting this.
So if the individual pathologists are managing their day,
Mhm.
where management is not denying them that. Yeah.
So when we are planning our schedules, we need to know how much planning time to put in the day, how much we are guaranteed. Otherwise, we are being told that we need to fill up all of the time seeing students, mandated students. So we need to make sure that we know exactly how much time we are guaranteed to put in our day for planning purposes.
How do you know how much to put in now?
Well, if we were guaranteed the 250 minutes that are there, then we would know that we need to schedule at least 250 minutes so that that block would not be then forced to be filled up by a session. We have to know
So-
where we can.
Right, and I understand what you're saying. I'm just asking, so you're told not to do 250 now?
If there are individuals who are not getting their planning time,
That's not what I
Because
asked.
they're
That's
being-
what I asked. I've asked, you're told not to schedule 250 now.
we are being told to fill our schedules with students. So there are individuals who are not getting their planning time.
And so our intent is, we want it clear in the contract for that, the employee, but also for, the administration
Sure.
to know what they're
Can I
supposed
ask
to
a
get.
couple of follow-up? Do you have interaction with the individual school-based principals, assistant principals?
What do you mean by that?
So Ms. Mousley said, so that the admin knows. So would an admin know that you are filling your schedule to the max and not getting an appointment at an individual school?
Admin should know that because we can share our schedules with admin,
Okay.
that we are not getting that time.
And so when you say you're told to fill your schedule by whom?
Because we're given our caseloads and we're told,
Okay.
put your caseloads and you have to fit your caseloads into your schedule.
And, I'm sorry, just to add on, so many SLPs service more than one school, that while one administrator may assume that they're getting that time at another location.
Yes. No, we talked about that. I just clarifying.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then if we go to
6?
5 and 6.
Okay. So it's the same thing on 9 then?
Yeah, so 9, we're okay with
9
that.
would
language,
reflect
yeah.
anything. Okay.
Yeah, we didn't really make any changes quite yet because we had a lot of discussion and then needed to kind of ask you guys some more. So the intent of 5 and 6, and I know we probably said this last time, but we have ESE teachers, we have ESE classroom teachers, pre-K, elementary support facilitators, SLPs, who are, the caseload amount has gone up, right? In the meeting that I was in this morning with Superintendent Forson, there has been a 7.7 increase of students with disabilities in the past year. So where is that that responsibility falling? Where's that time falling? It's on teachers, right? Because they have to now manage those extra caseloads. And so they're just struggling to have enough planning time to be able to manage the IEP and all of that sort of paperwork, but also actually plan lessons, which both of those things are parts of their job that they need to accomplish. So because, again, the numbers of students with disabilities that we have in the district has increased, that workload is increasing and it's got to go somewhere. So that was our idea there, was to allow those teachers to have some time. And so what are you guys proposing happens with that extra workload?
So on 5 in particular, I'm not sure that I can address the time necessarily, other than that, and Ms. Dowdy was there, was a heavy part of the discussion with pay, with all differentiated pay, to speak to some of those things with ESE heavy caseloads. 6 in particular, so part of the conversation is that many school principals do that now. They do provide their
So-
teachers with, with the time to do it based on many factors that would probably deal with collaboration, connectivity, right?
Okay.
Understanding the scope of
And
it. So
I'm going to point back to the argument that, yes, there are principals who are great and are giving them that time, but this is also to make it equitable across the board. And we can name principals that are not doing that. And I don't want to call them out here, but this is so that everyone has equitable time across the district, no matter if you get a great principal or you get one who's going to be a stickler for things.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily about the principal. I think it's hard to say equitable when you're dealing with individual needs of students that are so different,
Right.
right? So obviously the scope of the work in many cases is dictated by the IEP. So caseloads might be 7, but that caseload is completely heavy. So I understand it's difficult, And I don't know that there's a fine science to it, but we do recognize that it's something that we're continuing to look at. So,
Can I ask a question? So you referenced in number 5 that in differentiated pay,
Mhm.
that maybe something you guys are talking about is the caseload for ESE. That deals with pay. This is dealing with time so that they can
Right.
deal with the additional, I mean, pay is great for additional caseloads, yes, but they still have to, with those additional caseloads, still have to do the additional work.
They still have the planning.
They still have
that
the
needs to
planning,
happen.
Yeah.
they still have all the other things that happen. I mean, yay for more pay, but
well,
when do they have time to do everything?
I didn't say it was a perfect way that we're dealing with. I think it's a way that we looked at in the differentiated pay piece. You're looking at, obviously hard to fill positions, and ESE positions are hard to fill as well. And then I think we understand that the scope of the work has increased. But it's difficult. I mean, we did read it and look at it. It's difficult to be able to qualify an additional 4 minutes. I mean, because I think it varies by student as well. So, and I think pay is one way to recognize that we understand the differentiation. Of course we do, between ESE and the caseloads, et cetera.
Normal, what's an average caseload or rough
I don't know, I
caseload?
mean, Lisa's got ESE.
May I speak?
That's,
I mean, you can talk about what is your number, how many
Just-
do you have on your case?
Okay, just to get from my perspective as a blended pre-K teacher, I have 18 students, 14 have IEP.
Mhm.
I've done 20 IEPs this year. I'm the case manager, I draft IEPs, it takes about, to do an IEP, 150 minutes, let's say, to do just
Sure.
an annual review
Right.
IEP. I have 30 minutes if it's a behavior plan, but let's just say an IEP review takes 150 minutes. My contract says you have 250 minutes for planning time. A kindergarten teacher has the same number of students, the same number of minutes. If it's taking me that week to do that one IEP, I have 100 minutes left to do my lesson planning, my deliberate practice, my assessments, everything else that a classroom teacher has to do.
Okay, so Kine, how many do you have on your caseload?
So I'm a diagnostician, so my role is different. However, our treating therapists have between 60 to 75, and there have been some who've had 100 or more on their caseload.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if you're aware, but next week we're going to a Medicaid training. Medicaid involves at the end of every day, we need to fill a session note for every student on our caseload for every day that we see them. It takes at least a minute to 2 minutes to write a session note. So if you have to do that for 60 kids, most of whom we see 2 times a week or more, that's already, what, I said 60 times 2, that's 120 minutes already there, just for that session note. And that's not even considering the IEPs that we have to do, the progress reports we have to do, and the planning. That's documentation compared to the planning for instruction as well.
So yeah, when we met with our SLPs, I mean, it was around 55 to 60 for SLPs. I mean, it's different depending on
Case
what
level.
service you're providing
Sure.
and whatnot. I've heard, numbers of 40 for support facilitators. So, and everyone that I've talked to in terms of people that have caseloads, they've said that it's increased by 5 to 10 kids in the past few years. And so, I mean, even just decreasing the caseloads by 10, right? Or recognizing that extra 10 kids is going to take however much longer.
And the
workload.
caseloads are higher because of,
The increase, we've increased students with
and
disabilities by
and
7.7%.
difficulty in finding people to fill these positions,
Yeah,
which goes
probably.
back a little bit to the pay.
It would be interesting conversation to ask the ESE teachers or those, whatever you're looking at, would they prefer to have more planning time or would they prefer to have more money?
Right.
I mean, I just don't think they have enough time to do anything anymore,
Right.
much less try to have a life at home and raise their own children or have a life.
I would encourage you to talk to your APs who are LEAs at your schools about the increase in IEP meetings and caseloads and all that, because I think you'll find that the numbers are interesting. They're all overwhelmed.
Well, but I wouldn't be surprised by any of the conversations if that's what you're
Okay, well, then
suggesting.
why are we not meeting us somewhere in the middle to give us, to, work out language to get more planning time?
Because it's difficult. I mean, if it was that easy, it'd be done.
Yeah, I mean, I was just doing rough math. If we're short on SLPs and you are doing a 60 student caseload at 4 minutes each, that's 240 minutes a week, which is 4 hours. So we would be taking an SLP away from direct service or other workloads for 4 hours per week. How do we, then we're going to need to hire more SLPs. So I was just
Okay.
that's the thoughts
So,
that we go through. Is
Yes,
like, okay,
I
how does
understand
that,
5 and 6 is asking for additional planning time, right? But you guys aren't even trying to work with us on protected planning time that already exists within the contract. We
What
just want
numbers
it to be protected. On 1, 2, and 3, and 4, I think. No, 4 is the alternative school, so that's a different story. But 1, 2, and 3, that planning time exists already. It's just that it's not being protected because of meetings and parent conferences and whatever other, reasons that we would need to get pulled when we're supposed to be planning. That's what we're asking for in 1, 2, and 3 is we're not asking for more. We're just asking for it to be protected. Okay, and another way to help, I think, SLP specifically out is a lot of them have duties that they need to do at the school, which is taking up times where they could be planning. So if we could maybe free them of these creative duties that they are assigned at the school, that would give them planning time back. That wouldn't require you to add any additional planning time in their day.
So where are you now?
This is just
Discussion.
discussion.
okay.
So
So-
give me an example of duties.
Bus duty, they're standing out there. How long is bus duty?
So typically in the morning, if we're coming in, we might be working from 7:50 to 8:25 during bus duty. And some SLPs have morning duty and afternoon duty. So they have none of that time that they could be doing documentation or planning.
That's
Okay.
kind of where we're at. So.
All right.
All right.
I mean, I think the hope is that, since we don't have a counter, is there something that we could try to meet in the middle on and try to accomplish, get something that maybe we're all agreeable that we can live with? I mean, again, this was one of the top things besides bereavement leave. This was also planning every single year comes out as one of the top issues.
Right underneath pay.
So is it, so is the problem not that there isn't enough planning time, it's just being taken by the administrator or
both.
people, both?
But if we
Because-
can solve part of that problem now by not having administrators taking our planning time, it's not necessarily administrators, but it's just the functions of a school, right? Like
Right.
IEP meetings, parent meetings, whatever, duties, whatnot. If we can solve, that's a part of the problem that we can solve that won't cost any extra money and would do a lot to make teachers happy.
And specifically, the people who kind of get the raw end of the deal, to say it nicely, are elementary teachers.
Yeah.
They're the ones who, really, it's a struggle to get all the planning time in the course of the day. That is the ones.
Would
more
it
than
be a
anything.
stretch to suggest that some of the IEP meetings and parent meetings is also planning?
What am I, planning time is supposed to
Go ahead.
be.
Yes,
Yes.
just yes.
Yes.
Can you elaborate, Andrea? I'm just a question.
Planning is, I'm either going to be looking at what students have done so that I can see what they need in future lessons. It is me planning actual lessons and making the copies, doing whatever I need for that lesson to be successful, right? Planning does not mean talking with a parent about a student or,
About student data.
but student data that you're getting in an IEP meeting has nothing to do with
So what-
planning.
What,
Well, at an IEP meeting, you're meeting and you're discussing the goals for the next year, so that's the actual meeting. But there is work that occurs before that. So you have to actually draft the IEP and find all of your information and pull that together. But attending an IEP meeting itself is not planned. Perhaps getting together the information would be.
a
but
portion of it
actually
could be.
attending the meeting
Okay.
would not count as that.
So no matter how you cut it, it almost sounds like we need more people. Because if you're gonna need people to cover bus duties and lunch duties and all those things to give you more, your planning time that you're supposed to have. Or to cut down on caseloads, but then more people means less money for salary increases as well. Because the more people you bring on, you still have the same amount of money, right? And so it's just it's a hard conversation walking that line. You want to give raises, you have a certain amount of money. At the same time, things have to get done in the school. So you try to spread it out as a principal to make sure everybody's doing a little bit. So it's not really hurting too many people. And it's just an impossible situation. I know one thing that we do that really wouldn't have anything to do with this is talking to the principals to make sure that they're doing everything they can to give you that unencumbered planning time. Put it in here, and then all of a sudden they need you out on the bus ramp, they're still going to do that. And then if it's a grievance, well, what are you supposed to do? You got to have somebody, you got to have a person. And so that's the thing. If we need more people, which we can't even find.
Do you know what keeps people on the campus and in your district?
What?
Making them happy and feel like they're valued,
Right,
and
so
that they have
I agree.
time to do what they need to do.
I agree. We've all been teachers. We've all been administrators. We've been deans. We've been principals. We've been in your
I'm always
shoes. I've
happy.
done IEPs as a teacher. Tons of IEPs as a teacher. Been to ton of IEP meetings. I know what you're talking about. And so do our principals know that. And trying to do everything we can to keep the teachers happy. I agree 100% with that. I think we all do. It's just what is it that we can do?
So you'd be a great
Right.
person to be there for arrival and dismissal duties.
There you go.
Done that zillions of times. So I'm not saying I disagree with you at all. I'm saying I do agree with you. What are those things that we can do to help teachers to be happy and be here and stay here? And if there's something that we can do with all this, we certainly need to do that. I'm just trying to think how we can put something in here and then make it a reality that's practically going to work. Because you can't put something in there that you're not going to be able to do.
If I could add just one
So-
more piece specifically about SLPs. When SLPs bill for Medicaid, we actually make money for the district.
Mhm.
If we do not have time to bill Medicaid, then the district will not make that money.
Right.
So giving SLPs time to do that documentation is going to equal funds. In fact, your speech language pathologists are the ones who bring in the most Medicaid money in the districts. We bring in more money than
Right.
nurses, than physical therapists, than occupational therapists. And if we have the time, we will be.
So I
able to
agree.
make
So
money.
how do we give you more time? How do we do
A portion
that?
of that, correct, in your
But
paycheck?
most, I believe we get 5%, but most of it goes to the district.
Yeah.
Do you know how much? I mean, it's not
As
a
a fault. It's not, but it would be more.
So how do we give you more time to do that? Because it sounds like you don't have any time left in your day.
Right.
We'd have to
Get-
hire more people to
So,
take some of your load,
we're-
right?
What we've proposed is not saying that we shouldn't have any of our planning time encumbered by meetings and duties
Oh,
and
no,
whatever.
no, I
We're
know.
just saying a portion of
I
that,
know.
if we can get that
Mhm.
protected,
Mhm.
then a lot more people would be happy. So
Mhm.
you can very easily find who you need to find within the school without having to hire more people to say,
Mhm.
well, this person's going to do duty on A, B, and D day.
Don't disagree.
Like,
And are you,
so
so you're saying that that's not happening in schools? That's something that we need to look at. Because that's something that
That
should be.
would be why we're bringing it to the table.
And then your situation, I still don't know how to give you more time. I don't know how to do that if your time is
Taking
full.
away our duties. If you take away our duties, we can work at the top of our license.
So you have all these duties. These duties are everyday duties.
Or
And
I can't,
And-
speak for myself,
Yeah.
but for many SLPs,
Uh-huh.
yes, they have a lot of
Okay,
duties.
so that's a great answer. We need to look at that. We need to definitely look at that, because you're right, you need to be doing what you need to do. And we need to find out who else can cover those areas. And I can tell you as a principal, and so can Wayne, I think too, man, you're struggling to find anybody to do it. And then try to give them comp time, try to give them this and try to give them that, or whatever you can do, I'll bring in a donut every day, whatever it is. I'm not saying all principals do that, but I know that's something that we're thinking about all the time. But that's a really good point, and that's something that the principals in those schools need to look at. I agree, and we can talk to them about that. Putting it in here to say you will every single time do it, or else there's going to be a grievance, that's not going to work, because different things happen every single day. But if our intent is to make that work, and we try and we do, that's good, and that's how it should happen. But to have something that, Tammy's going to give me a grievance over because it's in here and we couldn't do it for a week, that's not good either. So, we just have to make sure we're putting in here what is practical that we can do, and then work together to help each other out.
But I do want to make the point though that it's in the contract so that if it is not being followed, we can file a grievance. So if we don't
Yeah.
have the language in the contract, then there's no grievance being filed,
Right.
and then your point is moot.
Yeah, there's nothing filed. That's exactly right. But we're trying to do what's right.
Because we can't
We're
file
trying.
anything if we don't have the language in the
So
contract
that's why you want it in there.
that's not being followed.
So you can,
Correct.
so you can grieve on it.
Well, and then you have an arbitrator who rules and gives a ruling that either
And
we're,
that's why.
or
it's
we're
gonna
not, or
go-
they,
and
or
that's
you're
why
not
We're
following.
not going to allow some of that to be in there, because we can't put something in there that we can't do.
Oh, brother.
No, that we can't do.
No, the point
We
is
will
we don't
try to
want
do
to
as-
knowingly do something that we are going to say, yeah, we're pretty comfortable.
Right.
We're going to run into implementation errors on
Right.
this. And it's not about, we don't want to put things in here that are going to draw grievance. It's, we want to put things in here that we feel comfortable we
The
can
thing that's
do.
frustrating, I think you guys are frustrated over it too, is I think we all want to try and do the same
Oh.
things. It's just, how do we do that? And is it going to be so formalized that we're all like, I don't know, we're all
So-
trying to do the right thing. We
All
just
right,
need
I've
to.
got a couple, I just asked a simple question. IEP meetings, I mean, Sally. Can I ask a question?
Should have asked.
At the SLP? I don't know your name, I apologize.
Come in.
So does everybody know then the scope of what an SLP does, you think?
I think we attempt to communicate it,
Okay.
but since our role is highly specialized, it is sometimes difficult to fully understand.
Okay.
But we do try to.
So part of it may be a sort of a re-education then from what
In
they,
terms of what piece? I don't think just re-education necessarily is going to solve the problem.
no, well, I'm talking about from our perspective about the scope of work that an SLP would do at our schools.
And to what end?
Duties?
So you're saying if individuals understood more the specialized scope that we have,
Perhaps. Yeah.
that would
I don't know.
better
I'm just-
excuse duties? Or explain why it
Well,
might be better utilized? in
so
other
that's my
places?
question. I don't know. I mean, I think you're bringing up some points here, just like Dr. Osman has said, that I think we can look at. I don't know that you had that as language, Morgan, but I certainly can look at that from an SLP perspective. I think that, can I ask a question about you?
And we didn't provide any, we just wanted to have a conversation. This came up
So-
in the conversation.
So in you said there's language, there isn't language in here. Or there is
For
language.
what?
No,
1, 2, and 3.
no, there's no language. We we're having conversation.
No,
Are you
yeah,
saying
we're not
language
presenting
now?
anything.
Hmm?
I don't understand what you're asking me.
So people are violating the planning period times now. That's what you're saying?
I
People-
think if a teacher kept a log on how much actual planning time they were getting that was unencumbered every single week, it would be under this number continually.
All right, that was my
At,
question.
at some schools, at other schools,
Right.
no. I mean, that's
Yeah.
obviously
Again,
variable.
we're trying to not
Okay.
have the, it depends on your principal.
So
situation.
maybe that's my question then. So the language is good if it's followed? Okay. All right, so I wasn't going to speak.
Nope.
You were going to speak.
We're not,
So-
as long as we're not done with this one. Are we done with?
Yeah, that was all we
chat?
had,
Okay.
yeah.
So I think Terry's going to talk a little bit about 8, but I think we're going to take this back, and I think there's some things that we can work on specifically related to that, and we'll
Okay.
bring it to the.
And I would
Yes, sir.
encourage, especially on the psychologists, ask maybe their supervisor, like, have you talked to people about 11-month or 10-month? Because
You have no faith in me. Yes, I have. We have spoken to
I have to
both.
say it at the table, come
It's
on.
okay. It's okay. I expect you to. Yes, we have spoken to this. We've done some research on that, and I think we can bring something back the next time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and where we were on 8, we spent a long time in there, not only kind of discussing some of the feedback that you had at the table to our proposals, a lot of time to that, but also really trying to navigate through 8. And I think, Mr. King, when we left, we were trying to figure out, are we saying the same thing? And so when we went back, we were talking through proposed revisions, and I think where we landed is it sounds like we may be trying to do the same thing here. And wouldn't it not make more sense for us to try to conceptualize maybe better than where we are right now on this with what we're trying to do in terms of this transfer? I know we had talked about maybe verbalize some of the, what about this, what about this, what about this? But that's where we landed is I think we understand. I think.
Yeah.
I've still got
I think we would propose to rewrite it, and because I think it's a merge of
It's gone
about
back and forth
7
too many
different
times, yeah.
philosophies. Yeah, not just here. Like,
Right.
So I think we're at a place where we understand an early transfer application that shuts down before we go external.
Mhm.
And we understand your position on interviews, and we would have a position on that too. But I think we're in the same place. We'll recraft the language and present it the next time. But I just think it's muddy there now.
Oh, it's very muddy.
So we clean it and simplify it, and we just want to make sure the vernacular is the same, right? Early transfer,
Right.
because
And this is just
Yeah.
thinking as you get ready, would it be easier to, if you're going to rewrite it, just get rid of
I
all
was
of the
thinking,
new language?
just go to the old
Go to the old
contract.
language and start fresh from there?
That's what I was thinking through as we were
Okay.
saying that. Yes.
Okay.
yeah.
So just for the one though.
Some of it
the
we're
new
good on.
School.
Yeah, all
Yeah.
the rest.
We're
Yeah,
already
so
clear.
from
Section.
3 on, we're good with, and then we just need to change what's in the middle there.
2, 3, 4, you mean?
No, 3 on the second page, sorry, the original 3,
You're saying involuntary.
under involuntary,
Gotcha.
yeah,
Oh, you're talking about
that 3, yeah.
everything
From here on,
is fine.
yeah, and
I
then
think that's
everything before
correct.
it, we got
Yes.
to rework. Oh, I guess I need to put in my counters. Is there anything that you guys think you can sign? Do you want me to put it in the
I can do that.
Did you print out
MOU in 12.
12?
and 12?
12? Oh,
Yeah, she has 12.
12? Article 12, Bill Surprise.
I was about to say, I don't think I've ever been to an IEP meeting that was 150 minutes. We're usually like 6.5 hours.
No, but we're,
I usually get to go to the longer ones.
oh, under 50. I thought you said
Yeah.
150 minutes. So I was like, no, that's saying that. That's not good.
No, I was just, I usually go to
Well, and
very
some,
lengthy ones.
some case managers are great and they're like, classroom teachers go first. And then they're like, you guys can go do what you need to do. But other times they're like stuck in a meeting for,
I was in Oregon.
Huh?
Lisa. She was organized. Lisa Brubaker.
Osceola. Osceola.
Osceola School.
No.
Let's get started.
Yeah.
I'm on my conversation, so we don't have this one.
Make up our own. It won't look like theirs maybe,
No,
but I know we want to. Right.
Yes, the leave one specifically.
Third.
You guys couldn't counter on leave tonight? It's only that one section. Just
We might.
let us have the 2 days, for goodness sake. It's one more that we have TA'd then. See how nice I am? And then it's suggest we can get to the day. Get done soon.
If you want to, we can take 2 minutes, and if we can get
Okay.
some feedback.
Okay.
You keep 2, I keep
Yeah,
1.
we got 2. Is there anything else?
And then this was the
Yep.
internal only app,
Mm,
right? You sure?
Yep.
Okay.
She's not in there yet.
Yeah, we'll bring it back next time, Tammy,
Can't do it without talking about.
on the leave. We'll bring it
Okay.
Or
back.
down someone who needs.
Well, that means we won't be until July then,
Yeah, I'm gone all of, I'm gone most of the summer.
because I have probably the only,
That 7.7% number, is that from last year?
From last year to this year.
the only day I can potentially do it would be June 10th in the morning, but I have
Is
to
that
be flagged
inclusive of
by
504?
1 o'clock.
It said students with disabilities.
Just curious.
Or I could do May 31st.
You
Or
need
May
2 copies more?
31st.
Did we get 2 copies?
Yes, yes,
So
thank you.
May 31st or June 10th.
In the morning would have to be June
I
10th.
can't, oh, for,
For if,
I was like, wait, I can't do.
It would have-
May 31st and June 10th.
Okay, so
Okay.
can I just clarify?
Okay.
this?
do you want to do?
now?
Morgan, we ready to cut if we're just gonna count on
May
it?
31st, what-
We're
Yeah.
talking about different dates.
Consider that.
We're good.